Welcome back to the Epic Universal Podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and this is the podcast where we cover the latest Universal news, rumors, and history. And as always, I'm joined by Eric Hersey, but he's in far-off West Virginia, whereas just this past week we were in the same place at the same time, right?
We were, Jim, and we'll be talking about that later in the show. We went to the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, and you were gracious enough. You had a longer drive than I did. Mine turned out to be like 4 hours and 45 minutes. You were a little bit longer, right?
Yeah, well, it was 6 hours going down and then 9 hours coming back, but it was worth it. It was worth it. I always enjoy hanging with you and Lauren and Hunter and Miles. But at the same time, we got to see this exhibit at Franklin, which we'll talk about at length and later on in today's show. But lots of news this week.
We finally got some news that we've been waiting for. Some of the worst kept secrets ever and so forth. But when you were driving down, do you go past New York, Jim? Do you go do you drive through New York to get to Philadelphia?
Yeah, that they typically actually send me along the Hudson and then up onto the GWB across to Jersey. And speaking of New York, which makes you think of Broadway, we have, again, I know it's been a while, folks, but it's time to talk about Wicked again, which, by the way, Universal's theatrical division produced, and it debuted on Broadway back on October 30th, 2003. And I bring that up because we are just weeks out, Eric, from the Broadway production of Wicked achieving a real milestone. It's 9,000th performance. Man. And by the way, there have only been three other shows that have achieved this, and Wicked's about to join this group. There's Phantom of the Opera, which closed in 2003 after 13,000 performances.
Wow.
And then we have Disney's The Lion King and the revival of Chicago, which are both still going strong and have done over 11,000 performances on Broadway. So, but Wicked, in fact, nice folks reached out from that show to let me know that right now they sit at 8,843. The way the math on that works is that, they do 8 performances a week. So it's now looking like it'll be sometime after the first of the year, but they're going to start talking this up in a really big way very soon, with the notion of you want to come back to Wicked and and more to the point, you want to see if you can get to the 9,000th performance. And evidently, Eric, just saying, we might get invited. So,
Jim, we've been doing a lot of traveling this year, so why not make a trip to New York in the process? You know how long it takes. I imagine it. I think it was just when I was in Philadelphia, I was getting hit up by a ton of Facebook ads for Broadway, so it must be in that hour and a half, 2 hour driving.
Oh, no, absolutely. That you are in what they view as their prime market, though. Though, speaking of traveling, we should take an opportunity here to acknowledge our sponsor, which is Be Our Guest Vacations. And if you're planning your next Universal Orlando adventure, let the experts at Be Our Guest Vacations take care of the details. Their travel professionals provide personalized concierge service and will work one-on-one with you to plan your resort stay, also help you get theme park tickets and special extras. If you're going from the Wizarding World to Jurassic World to Epic Universe, they can help create the ideal Universal vacation. So get started today at beourguestvacations.com and be sure to mention the Epic Universal Podcast sent you. All right, we now get to the news of the week, which, by the way, this first story literally broke today.
I know.
But again, we had already been talking about this, right?
Jim, you don't understand how happy I am when we get the news and we're like, we didn't record yet, because so often this happens and it's just like, well, I guess we'll talk about it on the next show, and we're a week late. But finally, the Universal Halloween Horror Nights announces Ozzy Osbourne's haunted houses, basically for both coasts. So this is the Ozzy Osbourne Prince of Darkness haunted house, and it's essentially just a tribute to Ozzy, right? So it's is 45 years that basically travels all the way from like Black Sabbath all the way to his solo career, his music, and it'll have his album imagery and all the personas and various, Ozzy-isms. I'm wondering if there's like a reality show house, where it's
Sharon!
Right. No, okay. But Jim, so this was a horribly kept secret. They just announced it today. Now that we have a little bit more information, does that were you an Ozzy fan? Did you
I
appreciate him?
I was more of not so much the music, but Ozzy the guy. Have friends who, knew, Ozzy and Sharon. And, in fact, they were like, the TV show, yeah, that is basically them. Poor Sharon sort of, rides herds on the crazy train there. And speaking of which, we have what's intriguing about this is we have two different takes on the source material. Can you talk about how the Universal Hollywood version of the Ozzy-themed maze will differ from the one in Orlando?
Yeah, and I was surprised by this. Now, granted, I'm new to the whole houses, and it seems like traditional sense when you do something that's multiple, you just clone it. We see that so often with so many of the attractions. We talked about that a bit, but it's so cool that they're actually giving you different experiences. So in Hollywood, it actually begins at Birmingham, England, and it basically follows him throughout his childhood, and it's scenes inspired by Crazy Train, Diary of a Madman, and essentially like there's a Madman Ozzy, a Werewolf Ozzy, and a Prince of Darkness. So there's like personas. So very interesting in general. But Orlando's version actually takes the guests through the ruins and dungeons before boarding a Crazy Train into environments inspired by Diary of a Madman, Bark at the Moon, The Ultimate Sin, and Black Rain. So very cool. So they're basically going to be different houses, but they're all inspired by Ozzy stuff. And I have to imagine the soundtrack is going to be amazing in there.
I mean no disrespect to Sharon, but she was a very sharp businesswoman and did right by Ozzy. Great job of managing career. So, but knowing Sharon's involved with this project, it's not really a surprise that there's a merch aspect, right?
Oh sure. Yeah. So you're going to get your T-shirt. You can get acrylic figures, on both resorts. So you're going to see all, and I think a lot of the stuff actually showed up on Shop Universal already. By the time this comes out, the 30th. So it came out on the 30th. So head over to Shop Universal if you want to see the exclusive Ozzy merch. But lots of merch out there, lots of cool stuff. So we knew this was kind of coming. Thank you, Pandora Slip. The ad that came out. Thank you, Jack Osbourne, for accidentally saying something in a Q&A months ago. But now it's finally official. So that is most of the houses, all the houses. I'm pretty sure it's all the houses have been announced now.
Well, there we go. Now, we were just talking about a Universal Hollywood, and all summer long, we have been waiting on word as to when Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift would finally, pull out of the garage and hit the road. And that has finally happened, right?
We have a soft opening, so we still don't know official. There's no press release of the official opening, but the soft opening happened on Tuesday the 27th, I believe, 28th, Tuesday the 28th. And we were just so fortunate to have friend of the show, Ashley, actually get to witness it. She was already on this, and I got firsthand recounts of how it is. So pretty exciting. So the track is open. People are on it. It's going by. It launched, I think, they opened it up, at 1 o'clock, and then they had to shut down the attraction at 1:10 because the lines were already too long. They did open it back up, but a few things to note, if you were paying attention, you didn't know, they were actually on the time honoring Express Pass. There is a single rider line, and this is the first coaster out there that actually has metal detectors. So you have a locker, a two-sided locker. Anybody that's familiar with the Orlando versions of Stardust Racers or pretty much most lockers.
Yeah, Velocicoaster.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So same difference, and then they walk you through the metal detectors. So that is new, and it looks thrilling. It starts right off with like a drop, and there's 2 sequences that you are launched up to 72 miles per hour during the coaster going. And of course, anybody that's seen it, you spin and you drift, hence the name. And many people that are riding it were giving it like a 10 out of 10 as a coaster, and they were all happy, but not everybody else was happy.
No. In fact, the folks in the neighborhood that immediately around Universal Studio Hall at Toluca Lake, those folks can hear the folks on board screaming. In fact, Drew Taylor, my co-host in Fine Tuning, lives up the street and has been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. It's like, yeah, that silent coaster ain't so silent. Where this gets interesting, Eric, and again, I only learned about this in the past hour or so, but I guess who's really upset about this are the folks over at the Toluca Lake Golf Course. That, supposedly there are a gentleman over there who, are in the middle of a swing and hear a scream and, get the yips.
Yeah.
And it was Jim Schul, veteran Imagineer, our partner on the Disney Unpacked project over in Patreon. He shared some photos just this afternoon with me of sound measuring equipment that's been set up around the golf course.
Yep.
And the question right now is, okay, who set that up? Is that Universal trying to determine how loud it is, or is that the golf course doing that? And if so, what are they going to do with this information? I mean, and remember, this attraction is only soft opened. It hasn't officially opened yet. We haven't had the grand opening, the press event, and just going to be interesting going forward here to see what actually happens. Because remember, Universal, when they were announced this project, made a very big deal of courting locals, talking about, oh, no, we're going to turn, we're putting up, scream blockers, and, and when, in the moments in the attraction when that they're going to be screaming, we'll direct the cars, we'll spin them so they're facing into the park, and,
They might have done all that, but it doesn't necessarily work. There's a lot of videos out online now from people from Toluca Lake that, like, they're just in their neighborhood and they're recording, and you can hear the faint screams. I mean, it's a video, so you really can't tell, like, if you were standing there, but they're all saying, no, this is pretty much, I think in a lot of the news outlets, pretty much all the news outlets are almost reporting more about the noise because it's more clickbaity in that aspect. But KTLA, which is a local station there, a good affiliate, basically interviewed a few people, and like one of their quotes from one of the residents was, when it's running, it's constant and it sounds like bloody murder over there. So, and the other person said it's like a horror film going on, constant screaming, yelling, very intrusive. So we will see how that works. We will get firsthand from, we'll continue to ask our friends that are living in there, including Drew, how does this affect you? And we'll see if that like impacts things at all. But that, you think they would have done their homework, or something must have went wrong for this to be such a problem.
And by the way, just want to put this out there before somebody floats this idea. KTLA isn't the Disney affiliate in the LA market.
All right.
That's KABC. Okay, KTLA is actually it's owned by what is it? Nexstar, the Nexstar Media Group,
right.
And it's the flagship for the CW out there. So just wanted to sort of make sure we dot that I. It's like no, not Disney.
I'm going to check out Disney's now to see how they're like, people are very violently screaming, this coaster must go down. That's probably more the bait there.
There we go. Okay. Now, speaking of corporate corporations that don't own these theme parks, we had Comcast reported its second quarter earnings just this past week, and had some interesting information about what's going on at the parks there, right?
Yeah, and I think we can keep this one quick because there's two things. It was up 2.7 percent, so it made $2.4 billion. But the big thing is that the actual attendance numbers were down. So it's weird. I mean, it's one of those things of like, I mean, I know Disney's been trying to do this forever, is to make more money but not have as many people in the park. But when you open up a brand new theme park, does that cause questions? Does that cause concern? Do you think there's issues? Because that's my thing, is like, you just open up a theme park. You shouldn't have any attendance down for quite some time, right?
Well, okay. Now, interesting that you mentioned this, because remember, when Disney opened Animal Kingdom in April of 1998, if you talk with folks at the company, they actually mentioned, well, we have sites here on property for theme park number 5 and theme park number 6. I mean, there was a plan. But what ended up happening was that when Animal Kingdom opened, Magic Kingdom numbers stayed solid, but there was a noticeable drop at Epcot and MGM. And that's the thing, the Epic universe. I've been actually talking with folks at the Resorts Effect. Have you seen anything so far in regard to attendance drops at the Universal Studios Florida or Islands of Adventure? And their answer at this point is, well, remember, we're deliberately limiting the number of people going into Epic per day, because, we're still getting our arms on how to operate this theme park. So it's not having a discernible, very noticeable impact, but, it isn't an issue they're aware of. And that's the thing. The financial community was sniffing at this as well. To the effect is the softness because of what's, people being drawn away to Epic. But so far, Universal, no. It's what's going on in the world. It's between fuel prices and people who, frankly, are a little concerned about, spending a lot of money for a family trip right now.
Right. Well, the other thing you could think of too, Jim, is that there was at least, and I don't know if this is the vocal minority or what have it, but the annual pass holders are like, I'm not going to buy another annual pass until we can get it with Epic, so I might not be going to any of the parks. Like if such a small decline that it might just be the annual pass holders are waiting out to get all of them together and then they bombard. So I don't know. I mean, the money being up is always a good thing, but you would just think that like, hey, more people are going to go to Universal and it's up. But we'll keep an eye on that. And I imagine if there's too many quarters in a row when they come out and have these, if they have these issues, there will be more flags to be set.
All true. Okay. Now, speaking of news at the corporate level, we learned that the movie studio that Comcast owns, Universal Pictures, has this is an deal to explore the idea of making movies, right?
Yeah, Jim. This is just a fun story I threw in there because I want your opinion. So Universal has talked with basically Atari, the classic video game, and they basically have 10 Atari properties in which they are kind of saying, hey, we have the option to make these movies, and I just wanted your opinion on which one you think you would like to see a movie on, and everybody else can weigh in theirs. So, Jim, are you ready for the options?
Sure.
We have Asteroids, we have Adventure, we have Berserk, Breakout, Centipede, Crystal Castles, Millipede, Missile Command, Pong, and Yar's Revenge. So this is Atari games, guys. These are very limited pixels with very limited story. What kind of movie do you think you would like to see, Jim? Would you like to see a Pong movie?
Given that Pong is pretty much where I tapped out when it came to video gaming, again, I have no hand-eye coordination. On the other hand, I could actually see them doing an adventure film, though. Did you ever play Adventure?
Listen, I think of Pitfall, so I don't know which one Adventure was. I'm not sure which one that was.
Adventure was more of a word game.
Okay.
It was the notion of you are in a maze of twisty, turny caverns. And it was also one of those things where the game kept an inventory to the effect of, like, for example, when there were a set of keys on the ground, you literally had to put down the lantern that you were holding and then, type in the command, pick up the keys, and then, just, okay, use the key. All right, put down the key, pick up the lamp. It was very labor intensive, but for old people like myself, it was fun. On the other hand, I do want to point out here, and this comes by way of your lovely wife Lauren, who I do the Disney merch show with. I want that too, and I guess our mutual pal Angela pointed this out to her. But they have the floor map out already for the D23 Expo, and there on the show floor is an Atari booth.
Right. So weird.
It's like interesting that Universal's just got this deal for potentially 10, movies, that Universal could potentially make based on classic Atari properties. And yet Disney's in the mix here somewhere as well.
It's weird. I don't know if Atari making a comeback, I guess.
I guess.
Get so popular that people are going to dig up those ET cartridges and start playing the worst game ever made. But, that'll keep Spielberg happy. This might be Spielberg's idea. He might, who knows? Right. But I figured that'd be a fun one to squeeze in before our break.
And speaking of which, when we get back, folks, we're going to talk about Universal's brand new YouTube series that's going to feature Al Roker from the Today Show, and if you can believe it, even more Harry Potter out in Hollywood. But before that, there's this.
Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
And we're back. We were just talking about Al Roker, long-time weatherman and personality on, that I don't even know how long the Today Show has been on in the morning on NBC. 50s, 40s.
Wow, yeah.
But we've just learned about Universal Today, which, is going to be bubbling up over on YouTube, right?
Yeah, we actually got an email from Jennifer, who was kind, and she broke the news to me. I mean, it came out that essentially that they made an announcement on the Today Show, go figure. So here's the email that came from Jennifer. It says, watching the news with my husband this morning, NBC announced that Universal Today with Al Roker. It struck me that NBC seems to be moving into a space currently occupied by YouTube bloggers. And it's interesting to see the network leverage its theme park asset, which, if I understand correctly, shares the same corporate parent, to capture a piece of that audience. It made me wonder whether this is, at least in part, an effort to reclaim attention and advertising that is increasingly flowed to YouTube creators and independent theme park media. And she said that it might be an interesting thing to talk about on the show, and I agree thoroughly that is the case. So I, of course, went over and watched the announcement video on there, and Jim, I'm in marketing, and I a little bit of the corporate speak of like, all right, how are they announcing this? So I grabbed the transcript of the announcement to kind of see what are they trying to do here. So let me humor you real quick with this is how they announced a couple bits of it, and you tell me what comes out of this, because they're very deliberate. This is all stuff that's scripted. It's all deliberate how they're saying it. So it's Universal Today, a one-stop shop for everything that Universal Orlando has to offer. Expert guidance on the newest attraction, a close-up look at the viral foods overtaking social media. Universal Today, we hope, will be your ultimate guide. Jim, what is that? That is what they said. This is exactly how they introduced it, and they showed a little clip package. What do you see from that? What do you take from them creating this thing?
This reminds me of 2008. Which is when Disney announced D23. And you have to understand that up until that point, for the decade previous to that, Disney had stood outside of, the internet. I mean, they'd made a couple of runs at it, go.com, that sort of thing. But what was happening is when it came to reporting on the theme parks and its films, it was the Harry Knowles of the world, or for that matter, the folks behind Al Lutz, the Mice Chat.
Yeah.
And this was the thing. Disney wasn't controlling its own story. Mm-hmm. And so this is when they stepped in with D23 and effectively clawed back, or dug out their own social media presence. And again, it sort of says a lot about where Universal sees itself in its evolution with its theme parks. The effect of, maybe we need to be a little bit more aggressive in this space, because to be honest, there's already a lot of people who are telling our story for us. And, if we look at the coverage of the opening for Universal Kids down in Frisco, Texas, maybe it doesn't go so well.
Right. I saw that 100%. I thought the same thing. And I'm like, all right. So number one is we know that this content is out there, and they can leverage someone like Al Roker, who is known to most individuals at this point in time. I mean, I think young and old have all watched a little bit of the Macy's Day Parade, even if you're not watching the Today Show, and that is what Al does. He's down there talking to people. But, we got that recent survey recently that really was talking a lot about the complexity of planning, and I just assumed they were really kind of talking more about how Disney is complex as opposed to them. But maybe they also are feeling like people are getting burdened by planning their vacation, and they kind of need to control the narrative there. And that's kind of what this could be, right?
Oh, no, definitely. But also let's not overlook the Al Roker aspect of this. I mean, Al's a beloved figure.
Yeah.
And face it, they'll probably fly Al into town, shoot 5 and 6 of these things at a time, and then send him home, and then parcel them out, over the weeks ahead. Mom and dad are more likely grandma and grandpa, the ones with disposable income, are sitting home and watching that nice Al Roker talk about the Universal Orlando Resort and thinking, ooh, maybe we should take the kids down there.
Right. You just said it, because that's what my thought was. I'm like, I don't think so. You look at YouTubers, right? You look at the typical YouTuber, and they are a younger generation, and that is what people in the younger, my kids watch YouTube. They don't really probably know much about Al Roker. They're certainly not watching that. So I don't think this is really a YouTube play. It could be. I mean, certainly they can show up. I think that they are absolutely doing what you just said, going after the grandparents. And when the Thanksgiving dinner or conversation about, hey, where are we going to go on vacation, blah, blah, blah. And people are like, Disney, the grandparents are like, hey, I've seen Al Roker, all that stuff down at Universal looks great, and we'll fund that. And that is the market that they're trying to get, So smart play, but I don't think it's about getting the YouTube audience, because, I mean, there could be some of that, but yes, it'll rank, but you're still going to watch your normal vloggers. You're still going to watch the Tim Trackers of the world and Ordinary Adventures for that. So,
I not to belabor the obvious, but I would imagine the stuff that is being produced for YouTube will wind up on the actual Today Show. Remember, they have a third hour of the show.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to fill the 180 minutes worth of television. So
yeah, I think they might have announced that might be the whole thing, but it's also it's a win-win, and I wouldn't doubt if it's on in the actual hotel rooms either, cause with the ride guys and dine and whatever they call them. So yeah, smart play. I think it's smart play, and thanks, Jennifer, for sending over the question there. I thought that was amazing.
And moving on now to, there are Wizarding Worlds and Universal Hollywood and Universal Japan, but also in Orlando. And we recently learned, though, that Universal is potentially, at least out in California, maybe doing some more stuff with live performers in this part of the park?
Well, one of those lovely anonymous surveys came in, and we just showed up on my doorstep. So I decided to look at some of the questions, and so there were lots of questions. There was probably about 10 or 12, all specifically talking about the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal Studios with a high frequency asking about characters and how they want to interact directly with the characters and how they, should they be a show? Should it be somebody that shows up that is like a weird character encounter, or special surprise queue appearances or formal meet and greets? So lots of questions, and it's funny, some of them were really described in very specific terms. Examples including Hagrid transporting a magical creature, or Weasley investigating Muggle objects, or Snape conducting potion lessons, or Moaning Myrtle speaking with guests. So it's basically saying, hey, what do you get excited for? And there was and it's like most excited, least excited, and it'll be like Baltimore surprise queue appearance, or Professor McGonagall surprise queue experience, or roaming characters with the Death Eaters. And it was just a matter, you like this, you don't like this, and just tons of those questions. So Hollywood, I mean, my suggestion is, Jim, is this just FanFest? They're just trying to figure out what's going on for Harry Potter for the next FanFest.
Now, it's interesting you say that because, remember, the FanFest that just went on, they had, effectively you entered the queue for the Hollywood version of Forbidden Journey. And then, when you got to the greenhouse, you entered an outdoor adventure where, you went into the Forbidden Forest and were chasing, trying to find a hippogriff. And by the way, Drew did this and gave it incredibly high marks. Felt that the folks really did a great job. But what's fascinating about this for me is when they mention, bumping into Professor McGonagall or Hagrid transporting a creature. The original deal for the Wizarding World of Harry Potter being built at the Universal Parks was effectively, it's like, look, in the physical land, you can't have the characters. The characters can exist in the film elements of the attractions. Whether we're talking Escape from Gringotts or the more recent one, the Battle of the Ministry,
right?
Which of course has Imelda Stanton as Dolores Umbridge, but evidently the language was very clear, at least from the Warner Brothers side, to the effect of you can't do a walk around Umbridge, you can't do a walk around McGonagall. So this is interesting because this means something may have changed, that maybe this far in they've renegotiated. And me personally, I'm fascinated by the timing of all this, because if you've been watching HBO at all, you've seen the trailers for the new Harry Potter, the series, which debuts in December, which has a brand new set of actors playing these characters.
That is so interesting. I never thought of that at all. That is super interesting. That makes this whole questioning very interesting. More so than just, hey, what we might get for FanFest. So there was one other question that wasn't really associated with this, but it was a matter of like having the user describe their level of fandom for the following franchises. And I thought this was kind of interesting that Fantastic Beasts was on there, and it wasn't so much, it was that particular one. And then you have things like SpongeBob and Jurassic World and Simpsons, Fast and Furious, and so forth. But Fantastic Beasts being on there is interesting to kind of know where that's going.
It is, especially since as far as Warner Brothers is concerned, in fact, the term that is used corporately over there is that franchise is parked. Remember, they were 3 films into what was supposed to be a 5-film series, and it's like, nope, we're done. Thank you.
Yeah. So, well, if you guys have any other surveys and you want to anonymously leave them on my doorstep, it's Wheeling, West Virginia, or you can, of course, email or direct message, whatever's easier for you. You can send an owl.
Okay. Well, all right. Now, that's the news for this week. But when we get back, folks, Eric and I are going to walk you through the Universal Theme Park, the exhibition that we experienced in Philly this past weekend. But before there's that, there's this. And we're back. All right. Folks, we have been talking on this podcast about Universal Theme Parks, the exhibition, since this thing was first announced. And by the way, that was a year ago this month.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Eric. In fact, July 15th, 2025, that's when Universal announced that they were going to do this 18,000 square foot experience at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. And it's going to have 8 different interactive galleries, which would feature 20 hands-on activities and over 100 artifacts related to the design and the creation of the Universal theme parks. And mind you, it took the Herseys and I a while to get down there. This opened at the Franklin on February 14th. And by the way, ticking clock here, folks, this exhibit ends at the Franklin on September 7th. It was designed as a traveling exhibit, but so far we don't know necessarily where Universal Theme Parks, the exhibition, is traveling to. Nobody shared that yet.
If it ends up in Pittsburgh or Columbus, I'm going to be very upset.
Well, there we go.
Maybe not. I'll just go see it again, but sure.
Okay. But as we mentioned earlier on in today's show, Eric and the family drove up from West Virginia. I drove down from New Hampshire. We met at 9 o'clock in the morning in front of the giant statue of Ben Franklin in the rotunda. And, do you want to walk the folks through what we saw and experienced? Or?
Yeah, I think we could do this together because there's a difference between me as a fan and you, obviously, as a journalist, because you actually got the names of stuff. And I was just calling, well, this is the blue room. This is the green room. So you might need to correct. But yeah, it was for those at the Franklin, we kind of walked our way up through this little, hallway. And the first room was decorated like the old glamour trams, right?
It was. Though, a couple of things before we get to the exhibit itself. First of all, the entrance is down on the ground floor of in fact, it's right across from ticketing at the Franklin Institute.
Yeah.
And you learned that, what is it? It's a one-time only through thing, right? That you get scanned. They give you a wristband that allows you access to the exhibit. And but again, one time only through. In fact, you and the family tried to duck back in earlier or later in the day, and they're like, thank you, no, right?
Yeah, pretty much, Jim. I was going to run through and just do like a point of view where like I just scurry through the room and record the whole thing. And I'm like, nah, we can't do that. And they were like, you're done. So you warned us ahead of time. I should have known better. You're like, hey, you got to use the restroom. They're not letting you out and back in. And I just thought that was like, well, that's just a normal, what a lot of times they say, but it is kind of a timed entry.
Yeah, that it is. And by the way, this is also another one of Eric's observations that, to be blunt, the Franklin is a science museum. In fact, the USA Today named it one of the top 10 science museums in the country. In fact, it houses the Fels Planetarium. So this exhibit was designed to be presented at a science museum. So it's not the Disney take on theme parks. It's not fantasy. It's not magic. It's not nostalgia. This really is kind of cold-blooded, right? It's largely about how ride shows and attractions are made today for modern theme parks, and it really, a lot of this exhibition focuses on Universal's newest theme park, right? The Epic Universe, which opened May of last year, 2025.
Yeah. One could say it's a nice advertisement for Epic.
But as Eric just mentioned, the very first room of this exhibit, which to be honest, is the pre-show.
Right.
Is, as you just described, it's set up in a room that looks like the glamour trams from out in Hollywood in '64. And here, they run a brief film that talks about the history of Universal City out in Southern California, which, started early 1900s. And we get footage of Steven Spielberg speaking. And what I thought was funny is they had a lot of footage of a J-Bang that we've talked about here on the Epic Universal podcast, the runaway train that used to be on the lower lot. And by the way, if you're motion sensitive, at the very end of this thing, they do a flyover of Epic Universe, but it's an image that's projected on the front screens and the side screens at the same time. And, I got a little irpy. But anyway, you then exit the pre-show and you come around the corner and there's a miniature Universal Arch that's sort of set up as a photo op, but you transition into the first real gallery from there. And any thoughts on that space, Eric?
Yeah, this is the one that I called Blue Sky. It had blue, like each room has a signature kind of color, and it was very much a pretty much like, hey, this is thinking up theme parks, right? And you have the official like name and what they called this, right?
Well, it was supposedly the Storytelling and Wonder Space. When Eric says Blue Sky, I mean, that's a thing. This was the area where you got lots of early concept sketches. I mean, there was, for example, lots of concept art for the early version of Despicable Me Minion Mayhem. But at the same time, they had things like mood boards. They for the Ministry of Magic sit-down restaurant, and that's literally, this is the color palette we're thinking of. This is the detailing for the walls. This is what the menu might look like. So, this was, how you get things going early. I will say this much. This was the first room where we encountered what are known in the Universal Studios or Universal Theme Parks, the exhibition, the profession portals. And this was where they showed film clips and sort of supersized iPhones. And I have to say, me personally, it was a lot of fun to see people that I've interviewed over the past decade, telling stories about working on the Universal Parks, like, getting to see Patrick Braillard again was fun.
Yeah. And that is a theme that you'll see throughout all these rooms. There were a couple different things. There were lots of things that you could see, and there was always an exhibit or like some type of interactive computer type thing that the kids could play on. So you'll see this kind of come up. Miles and I did every single one of them. There's usually some type of photo opportunity. And once again, like that film where there's a loop of some creative telling you what that room was about. Lots of cool things, and there was at least a few concept sketches. The Sing stage show that was there as like Blue Sky that never came into fruition. We're gonna have to dig in. I need to find out why we don't have a Sing stage show in one of the parks. That was one thing that caught my eye. And I'm like, I gotta figure that out. But yeah, this room, I love this room. I thought it was really cool in many ways. I love, as a designer, I design websites and stuff. So I do wireframing, I do mood boards, I do style guides. I love that stuff. So this was a great room. I spent more time in that room than I probably should have.
Well, now, next room is the Technology and Innovation Gallery, where, it's now the rubber meets the road. And what was fun for me was, for example, there was a video clip that showed the original huge Kong animatronic from Universal Studio Florida's Confrontation attraction. But and again, what made this kind of delightful for me is the folks at Universal admitted, and that thing kept breaking down. It was too big, it was too complex, but they then showed video footage of the newer Kong, the one that's in the finale of Skull Island: Reign of Kong at Islands of Adventure, and they talked about how this one works better, it's more consistent, but that's largely because it's built with smaller components. And but this is a room again where we get to see technology in motion. In fact, what I enjoyed, for example, is there was a station where you could practice lining up the film elements for a projection show at the Universal Parks. In fact, poor Hunter was trying to line up the film on the exterior of a building and was just having no success.
Failed miserably. The big red X.
Yeah.
He's not going to work for Universal Creative anytime soon, at least in that department. You know what? I asked Miles this morning. So Miles is our 9-year-old, and his favorite part of this entire exhibit was in this room because they had 4 animatronic animatronic sheep for the Iowa Burke, the ones that you see, and you got to use the hand gestures, and you could hold up, down, and so forth, and it would make it chew. It would change its head direction. So it was really kind of cool to see animatronic in action, and let the kids kind of
no, absolutely. That I love the hands-on exhibit or the hands-on aspect of Universal Theme Parks, the exhibition. Now, moving to the next room, this is the Thrills and Rush of Adrenaline room. And this is, where Universal talked about, how the thrill rides were made for its parks. And so, front and center in this room was a motorcycle and sidecar from Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. There was also a photo op where you could climb into the ride vehicle for Secret Life of Pets Off the Leash. What struck you about this particular room, Eric?
Oh, I think this had my favorite exhibit or like hands-on thing. So the computer would let you create your own roller coaster. And you essentially got to choose like the different loops. Like you could draw it with your finger. It reminded me something I think they used to do back at Innoventions. Like you get to create your own coaster. And beyond all thrills or some of all thrills, I got to do that. But this was just like almost a video game where you got to make it and then you got to see if your coaster would pass. In which my oldest son, 19, did not. He failed miserably. But my youngest son got it to go. And we used a lot of corkscrews and inversions but that was my favorite part. Along with, there was an exhibit where you could drop it showed you kind of how physics works and how you could drop a little marble down a thing and see if you can make it go through the whole coaster. And it showed you wheels. And I told you, I said, Jim, this room is great because when you guys over on Disney Unpacked start talking about really nerdy things, and I love it, we all love it, but you're talking about like seat cushions and ride technology and the wheels. And I'm like, Jim, I never know what kind of footage to use for this B-roll. And I'm like, I got all the footage I need because that's what they showed you in this room. So it was beautiful.
Okay. Well, me personally, what I liked about this specific room at the exhibition was they had a white foam model of the upper and lower lot at Universal Studios Hollywood, and this had been done during the early development of Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift to see how this new coaster was potentially going to impact that theme park sightlines. And what I found fascinating, Eric, was that in this iteration of that coaster, the track didn't go over the entrance to Universal Studios Hollywood Starway, which today, I mean, that's the thing. You cannot help know when this coaster is running because, right smack in the center of this park, just over, the Starway that you take down to the lower lot, this is what, Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift passes over. And so it's like just interesting to look at it and go, oh, that was an idea that came in late.
Yeah, that was cool. I got lots of good videos and pictures of that little model. Love a scale model. This was really like a concept. So, but this is where you say we kind of switch a little bit, right? There's a break in the exhibit.
We do. That the first half of Universal Theme Parks, the exhibition, that's actually staged in the Nicholas and Athena Karabatz Pavilion, which on the second floor of the Franklin. Now we follow a ramp and we wind up going up to the third floor of the Franklin, where the exhibit continues inside of the Mandel Center. And this is where we get right into what a lot of people associate most closely with the Universal Parks, and that's scares and horror. And this is where we learn a lot about not just the Halloween Horror Nights and all of the work that goes in year round to achieve that, but we also got kind of a taste of the work that went into a Darkmoor, the new Universal Classic Monsters themed land at Epic Universe. What did you think of this room, Eric?
Well, firstly, it had a cutout, a statue of the creature of the Black Lagoon right off the get-go. So you won me over within seconds of me going in. So that was a good one. But yeah, there was a couple of the hands-on exhibits on this one was you got to create your own makeup kit. So it was, you'd get to pick like a head and you get to paint on it. So it was like MS Paint or whatever, and then it went up on a display. So it was kind of fun making your own monster per se. And there was another one that talked a lot about lighting and how you can, and there was you got to pair the lighting with the music and tried to get that to work, and that was a nice little exhibit. But yeah, it showed a whole bunch of cool props from Halloween Horror Nights and just had a creepy vibe. This was the Red Room, and with the highlights and stuff. But yeah, what did you like about this room?
To be honest, I'm trying to remember if this is where they had the 3D printed maquette of the Phantom of the Opera seated at his giant organ, the thing you see inside of Monsters Unleashed, the Frankenstein experiment, or for that matter, they had a 3D printed version of that moment from that same attraction where Dracula is leaping at you. And it was just interesting to see, this is the tech that Universal is using these days to, sort of, get an early, take on, all right, does that look the way it's supposed to? Are we staging this right? So I enjoyed seeing, how Universal does the early work on things like Darkmoor.
Yeah, no, it was a cool room, and I was really surprised by the amount of 3D printing. I just, I knew this technology is available, but like that's probably a great use for those in themed entertainment now to use 3D printing instead of having to sculpt everything. Saves probably a lot of time and energy for that. So I think that was great.
Okay, so again, this is the Red Room. It's a little scary, so they follow this with big, bold, and entertaining, and this is a celebration of the live entertainment at the Universal Parks. And this had full-size walk-around costumes for Po and Tigress from the Kung Fu Panda franchise. Likewise, Gingy from the Shrek films. But the thing that look, this was a really big deal, folks. In one corner of the room, they had the toothless walk around that Universal created for their Hollywood park in 2019, and this thing was enormous. And by the way, Eric, I went on YouTube and they some very nice folks actually got footage of this thing in action during the limited time it was in the park. And boy, whoever the employee was that was inside of this thing, where they had to wear arm extenders and their feet were a foot or more off the ground in the rear legs, they really made Toothless move.
Wow.
Well worth checking out. Seriously, Google Toothless, Universal Studios Hollywood 2019, folks. You'll see some footage of this thing in action. It's amazing, but it was huge, a huge part of the exhibit. But also, worth noting that when you go to a Universal theme park these days, food is also a big part of, the park. So, whether it's, dining at the Leaky Cauldron or, the Three Broomsticks or, for that matter, the Toadstool Cafe at Super Nintendo World. And so in the authentic and immersive gallery space, you learned about how they prepped the menus for these sides of the park, but they also, talked about how the limited edition merch was created for the Universal parks.
Yeah, Jim. I mean, I think this is where you got to create a popcorn bucket, didn't you?
I did. And let's be honest here, folks. No one's buying that popcorn bucket. It was pretty terrible.
No, well, it was an online, so like we're not making physical. It'd be cool to 3D print one, but this was all like an immersive kind of design your own little thing step by step. So we all got to make popcorn buckets. I think we got to make cookies too, but there was a lot of those little things. But it was a cool exhibit. Yeah, you got to see a lot of cool stuff.
Absolutely. And then after that, exhibit is basically winding down at this point, and this final room is about the creative in you, and it's To be honest, it's kind of the aspirational part of the exhibit. In fact, for a Miles and Hunter who spend, the better part of an hour doing hands-on, whether it's moving animatronic figures or, learning how to line up, projection mapping shows, it was the notion of you could do this too. You could come be part of Universal. You could come work at the Universal Orlando Resort. And then, of course, as we enter the post-show, look, it's an exhibition celebrating a theme park. You exit through a gift shop.
Yeah. And they had their own themed hoodies and magnets.
They did.
There was also, since this is a science museum, there was also like a very cool make your own roller coaster kit, which Miles wanted, but we were like, we're not carrying around that Philadelphia for the rest of the day. So
there we go.
Maybe another time. But so you exit through the gift shop.
You do. And if I have just one complaint about Universal Theme Park, the exhibition, I would have loved to have taken home an exhibition or an exhibit catalog.
Yeah.
But there wasn't one. Anyway, to sort of sum up here, folks, and as we mentioned at the top, look, when Disney does a museum exhibit, and they've done a lot of them, over the past couple of decades, they're warm, they're fuzzy, they're nostalgic. Universal went the other way. I mean, as Eric mentioned, there were, displays of roller coaster wheels or for that matter, the guns, for VillainCon Minion Blast. But even so, you did come away with a real appreciation of all the hard work that goes into creating a modern theme park. Anyway, in closing here, just want to remind you that Universal Theme Parks, the exhibition, will be at the Franklin Institute through September 7th of this year. It is supposed to be a traveling exhibit, but again, we don't have any word yet about where it might be traveling to. But once we hear that, Eric and I will share that news on an upcoming episode of the Epic Universal podcast. But for now, Eric, I guess it's time to wrap up shop here.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and if you liked hearing this, there's more stories to come. Jim, Lauren, and I did things like Netflix House in Philly. We did a whole tour around Philly. There was all types of fun Philly stuff. So if you want to hear stuff, you got to let us know over on social, and we can scrap together some of our ideas and throw them out on future shows.
There we go. And speaking of which, though, if you have other topics or suggestions, for stuff you'd like us to Eric and I to talk about here on the Epic Universal podcast, please send those along through social media. And anyway, on that note, just want to thank you for listening to this week's show. And on behalf of Mr. Hersey, just want to let you know we'll be back next week.